second home, क्योंकि जो भी आजकल मैं इधर हूँ, it's come from the place where you guys are there. That is a great Himalayan National Park. So मैं इसलिए बहुत मतलब I'm feeling very kind of, I would say, humble and proud to be part of this occasion. I would have very much loved to be there because GHNP is always in my heart. क्योंकि आप लोग पता नहीं होगा जो हॉल में बैठे हैं लोग GHNP में, जो 95 to 2000 में हम फील्ड में थे. Even when this World Heritage Site dossier was to be prepared, उसी टाइम भी जो फ्रेंड्स ऑफ GHNP के मिलके हम लोगों ने किए हैं. So GHNP is not a site, मैं बोलूँगा it is not a place, it is a pride. So ये I think all of you may be realizing it, may not be realizing it. It is one of the very, very few places on this earth which is got its pride on the world map. इसलिए मैं सबको इसी पर्टिकुलर सेलिब्रेशन के लिए नो कंग्रेचुलेट करता हूँ, particularly the DFO अभी ये इतना इनिशिएटिव ले रखे हैं इस बार. I think for a long time now we've been seeing this kind of get together. I can see many of the senior officers and young officers participating in this. So without talking more emotionally about the GHNP, let me just get to the topic that has been given to me. I mean, of course, it's been a long gap for me. I worked on pheasants, and although I have the continuous work through my students, but then this is one area where I would like to kind of share with you. But I think since many of you are a young officer, I would take you to kind of the basics of this pheasants, because pheasant is an important species for Great Himalayan National Park and more for the Himachal Pradesh as such. So I think if my presentation is visible, if somebody can just confirm. Is it visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, right. That's somebody very quick actually. They're answering. Yeah. Great. So I think I know when Deepa was asking me that they were already having something in mind. Okay, we need to talk about pheasants. We need to talk about how to monitor them. But I thought, okay, I mean that's something is very important. But as of today, since GHNP is become the pride, it is the World Heritage Site. What is very much necessary for Great Himalayan National Park to have a larger understanding of pheasants, not just only Tragapan, and to see why they are so much important, why they are indicated species, how we can take them into a much larger pedestal than being confined to a product area management system. So I come here with those background, and in fact through this year I learned that how product area management can be successful when we try to take everybody on board. So when we talk about pheasants, I think for those commoners, I know many of you who are in the training program, when somebody asks you what is pheasant, now just as a layman, how do आपने कैसे बताएंगे peasants को? फिर अब I think I can mix my language, right? It's not a problem. ये साहब
Yes, it's very fair.
ठीक है, क्योंकि मुझे मालूम है लोग शायद सब completely English भी I think I should be fair to everybody. So प्लीज आई थिंक मुझे जो पार्टिसिपेंट्स के लिए पर्टिकुलरली अगर आपको कोई भी डाउट हो तो बीच में भी रुक के पूछ लीजिएगा. आई विल बी मोर देन हैप्पी. सो कोई भी कॉमन मैन क्या पूछेंगे व्हाट इज फेसेंट, वो तो उसका ऑरिजिन तो सेपरेट है. वी कैन टॉक अबाउट व्हाट वाज फेसेंट, उसमें कैसे ऑरिजिन हुआ है, लेकिन वो कॉमन पर्सन के लिए जो चिकन लाइक बर्ड्स बोलते हैं इसको, एनी बर्ड दैट लुक लाइक ए चिकन, क्योंकि चिकन कैन दैट समथिंग दैट कैन बी रिलेटेड. इसलिए चिकन लाइक बर्ड जो भी बर्ड से जो चिकन जैसा दिखता है वो लार्जर फेजेंट फैमिली में आ जाता है. सो खासकर ये जो बर्ड्स ग्रुप्स हैं साइज में बहुत बड़े हैं. दे हैव हाई सेक्सुअल डायमॉर्फिज्म. उसका मतलब क्या है? यू सी दिस पिक्चर कलीज फेजेंट, यू सीन दिस, मेनी ऑफ यू आपने देखे होंगे. मेल और फीमेल ये दोनों का मॉर्फोलॉजी बहुत डिस्टिंक्ट होता है. दे बेसिकली कैरेक्टराइज between two of them, so it's very easy to see that is what they are highly. There are many birds वो दिखता नहीं है आपको. अगर कभी भी कुछ कुछ बर्ड्स जो बैबलर्स देखेंगे उसमें मेल फीमेल आप जल्दी नहीं पहचाना पाएंगे, लेकिन pheasants are so important that way. I'll tell you why that the sexual dimorphism is important. क्योंकि pheasants ऐसे हम लोग को काफी लोगों को देखा हो रहा है अच्छा यार मुर्गा खाने के लिए अच्छा होता है, ऐसे नहीं है, वो बहुत कुछ है pheasants के पीछे. तो जनरली द ग्राउंड डलिंग बर्ड्स, जो ग्राउंड में रहते हैं, इसका मतलब क्या है, जो ग्राउंड रियलिटी हमको पता है, जो लोग कहते हैं ना ग्राउंड रियलिटी हमको पता होना चाहिए, उसके वो इंडिकेटर्स है वो फेजेंट्स, बिकॉज ऑफ द वे दे लिव, बिकॉज ऑफ द साइज, इसके ऊपर भी वो प्रेडेटर का प्रेशर रहता है। और कोई भी एरिया में अगर फेजेंट्स चाहें, देन यू वुड नो दैट दैट हैबिटेट इज गुड। So they have a very attractive morphology. No, they're very beautiful birds. They're so attractive. They have very unique behavior. Very, very animals on this earth can have that kind of behavior. Just you've seen, they have leopards. Tragapan will let out a leopard, and they have monal will dance. No, there's so many things that you can see in pheasants. अगर आप ग्लोबली देखेंगे, आप जैसे आई एम जस्ट ट्राइंग टू टेक दिस एडवांटेज टू आल्सो टू टीच यू क्या चलता है ग्लोबली। अगर पेजेंट्स को डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन देखेंगे ग्लोबली, देयर आर 51 स्पीसीज इन द वर्ल्ड। 51 स्पीसीज में आप 20 हिमालयाज रीजन में, उसी में 17 इंडिया में। आप इसमें आप सोच सकते हैं हाउ इंडिया इज सो इम्पोर्टेंट, इंडियन हिमालय इज सो इम्पोर्टेंट एंड हिमाचल इज सो इम्पोर्टेंट। क्योंकि अगर जब हिमालय फॉर्मेशन होता था, जो आप देखेंगे जो एरो है, एक्चुअली दैट इज एन एरिया वेयर द हाईएस्ट कॉन्सेंट्रेशन ऑफ फेजेंट्स आर, वहीं से रेडिएट हुआ। आपका जो ट्रैगोपैन स्पीसीज है, which is GHNP, is one of the latest in the evolution. Very special. So the radiation जो boa pheasants का जो cited tragopan बना, जो Bligh's tragopan, जो Cabot's tragopan, Temminck's tragopan, जो 5 तरह के tragopan species में, Western tragopan is one is coming the westernmost. So radiations पे, because lot of interesting, जैसे हम लोग कैसे अलग-अलग species कैसे बन जाते हैं, उसके लिए भी एग्जाम्पल ट्रैगोपैन्स हमेशा हम कहते हैं। जैसे हम कहते हैं ना, अरे यार हम there's a human, there's a goat, there's a how different species are formed. The ट्रैगोपैन्स are given as an example that how they are formed. क्योंकि जब कंटिन्यूअस ब्रेकेजेस हो जाते हैं, उसके बाद वो मॉर्फोलॉजी डेवलप हो जाता है, उसकी वजह से अलग-अलग स्पीसीज बन जाते हैं। जैसे क्वेश्चन है ना, पेसेंट्स क्यों कहते हैं, तो ये क्वेश्चन है वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग है, लोग हमेशा वो ठीक से नहीं पता पाते हैं। इट्स लाइक ए चिकन आया पहले और एग आया पहले, वैसे क्वेश्चन है फेसेंट्स का नाम से भी। क्योंकि जब फेसेंट्स फेजियानिड्स बोलते हैं, फेजियानिड्स मतलब चिकन लाइक बर्ड, उसके लिए फेसेंट्स हम कह रहे हैं। वो फेसेंट फेजियानिड कैसे आया, ऐसे कहते हैं जैसे हमारा जो मिडिल ईस्ट में फेसिस रिवर, फेसिस रिवर में कोई लोगों ने देखा बर्ड्स को, उन्होंने बोला वह फेसिस बर्ड है, वो फेसिस में हम लोग देखे हैं। सो फेसिस के नाम से वो डेवलप हुए हैं। सो फेजियानस ऐसे वो डेवलप हुआ है। सो दैट इज व्हाई पीपल ऑलवेज ट्राई टू से किसके वजह से, अगर फेसिस रिवर के वजह से फेजेंट बना, or because of pheasants the river became faces. So this is some of this very interesting thing that need to know, because it itself pheasant carries this kind of background to it. जैसे फेसियानस, दिस ओरिजिनली, अगर जो बता रहा था मैं, एक्चुअली दिस इज अबाउट दिस योर रिंग नेक फेसेंट, ठीक है। वो रिंग नेक फेसेंट अगर आजकल देखेंगे मोस्टली इज एशियन, दे वर देयर इन एशिया। दिस वाज द फर्स्ट बर्ड द पीपल स्टार्टेड डिस्क्राइबिंग, उसकी वजह से फेसेंट्स का नाम डेवलप हुआ। फेजियानस कोल्किगस इज द नेम दैट वाज डिस्क्राइब्ड, उसके वजह से पेसेंट्स का नाम डेवलप हुआ। इट इज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग, पीपल यूज्ड टू गो देयर फॉर हंटिंग, व्हेन दे सॉ सम इंटरेस्टिंग बर्ड्स लाइक दिस, दे स्टार्टेड डिस्क्राइबिंग, अरे मैं उधर ऐसे अच्छा बर्ड दिखा, वो कहाँ दिखा था, वो फेसिस रिवर के पास में था, सो फेसिस रिवर बर्ड बन गया था, फिर फेजियानस बन गया, ऐसे है। सो जैसे मैं बता रहा था, फेजियन बर्ड्स, इट्स अ ग्रीक टर्म है, फेजियोनोस बोलते हैं उसको, फेजियोनस मीनिंग फेजियन बर्ड। सो दैट इज हाउ आई स्टार्टेड टेलिंग दैट कौन सा नाम से कैसे पहले आया, रिवर का आया और फिर बर्ड का आया, ठीक है। सो फेसिस रिवर में बताया था, इट्स एक्चुअली एंशिएंट टेरिटरी इन बिटवीन द ब्लैक सी एंड द कैस्पियन सी, स्टिल देयर the birds have evolved and they radiated so much. Actually agar abhi jayenge, lot of places the pheasants have been introduced because of their attractiveness, because of the unique behavior. Otherwise they're Asian in origin, except one we have in Congo basin. So otherwise most of them are here. It is so much attached to culture, tradition. They are also known as the game birds, kyunki people love to hunt them, whether it's good or bad. Now it's hunting is banned, but if you see traditionally, pheasants are used for game hunting, and it also kind of increases the interaction with the human and wildlife. I mean, in a very different way. So game reserves are still there. In fact, India में भी अगर हमको आजादी के पहले और उसके बाद भी जितना भी हम प्रोटेक्टरी आजकल बात कर रहे हैं, मतलब 80% के मेरे ख्याल से हो सकता है, those were game reserves. जो अपने लोग, अपने प्रिंस, अपने लोग और even British, they were actually using them as a hunting reserve. So game hunting is one of the important thing that has been there. Even today in many countries that has been practiced. In Pakistan, people are hunting markhor and Ghubara bustard. So, so many of them.
परमेश्वरी सुनिए ना मैं क्या बोल रहा था.
Some of them have to switch off that radio. Okay, so no problem. So basically, the game hunting is one of them. So that's why they call game birds. Pheasants को भी ऐसे लोग generally बोलते हैं, game birds बोलते हैं. Culturally, so much valued. You see this. Start with all the pheasants. No, all of them. You can see somewhere or other they're associated to culture. क्यों मैं integrated component लेके आया? अगर जब आजकल लोग टाइगर के लिए बात करते हैं और बड़ा बड़ा अदर स्पीसीज, फ्लैगशिप स्पीसीज के लिए बात करते हैं, एलिफेंट, बट फॉर द हिमाचल प्रदेश, बट फॉर द हिमालयन स्टेट्स, pheasant group is something that can connect everything. Snow leopard is there, fine, it's interesting species, umbrella species, it is there in the cold desert. You have bear, you have others, but then some of them are not so much culturally connected as compared to pheasants. You can see pheasant is connected ecologically so much stronger in terms of indicator. It has been in the tradition of the people, and it is not something that people are going to be averse to. It is a species that people like them. So that is why pheasant becomes an important indicator. So many of us who are living in Himachal, who are actually serving the forest, actually first recognize that it is not just a good looking bird. These are the birds that reflect the condition on the forest, being the ground dweller. And see this, they know, globally it has been recognized, the origin of domestic chicken comes from pheasants, the ridge jungle fowl. Okay. So similarly, many of those pheasants have also been domesticated. It led to a huge industry, economic, in fact, not only we talk about poultry, also talk about medicinal values. In fact, people talk of taking, extracting medicinal property from many of these wild origin birds. So therefore, they become an important source for humankind. These pheasants, I know we've been, many of us in the villages, and they will say they would have relish wild birds hunting. So meat purpose is fine. Other than the meat, there are specific medicinal properties people have found in these pheasants. So therefore, these are something that we cannot afford to let them go. They needed to be basically preserved, not only for our consumption value, I mean, for medicinal value, but then we are talking here from a wildlife perspective. Wildlife perspective means we are not talking for consumption, at least in an Indian context. Other countries, they do hunt them. I mean, that is different situation. Other things about this domestication, I mean, chicken being domesticated, there are a lot of theories going around as it was domesticated in India, or it was China, or in the Southeast Asia. But that doesn't matter. People have resolved this question. There are a lot of variation. There are more than one places that people have already identified. They've decided, okay, there is a China's origin, there's an Indian origin. These research is going on so much. And these are some of the things that we know, because hybridization is something that people are talking about as one of the major concerns for pheasants to be lost, because domestic chickens are moving around. Wild birds are moving around. So therefore, they are basically this kind of the hybridization concern is there. एक दूसरे ये बीच में जैसे हम लोग चीज फेसेंट के लिए बात करते हैं और बाकी फेसेंट के लिए बात करते हैं, अगर कैप्टिव एनिमल्स, वाइल्ड एनिमल्स हाइब्रिडाइज करते हैं क्या, ऐसे करते हैं क्या, तो ये चीज जनरली लोगों के लिए प्रॉब्लम हो जाती है. Look at this. I mean, this is something maybe there was a video that I could not play. Peafowl is the national bird that many of us know. We know Monal was the state bird for Himachal Pradesh. I don't know how many of you know. It got changed to Western Ragapan not very long ago, thanks to some of us who were actually kind of lobbying for it during the time of Veerbhadraji when he was CM. So otherwise, Himachal and Uttarakhand both had Himalayan monal as a state bird. Now it is a Western Ragapan, which is state bird for Himachal Pradesh, whereas Uttarakhand continue to have Himalayan monal as the state bird. Why I'm saying this name change is not just as an academic thing. It is indicating the importance of the state. Western Ragapan is a very, very rare bird. There are not many of them. Even globally, there are less than 5,000 individuals is what people are talking about. This has been the talk for many years, despite more and more population being discovered, because there are places where they used to be many, but now they are not there. Even places like GHNP where they are not so many, but then we see many of them, partly to do with the development of the science, partly to do with the protection, all of them that you can actually see. But these, see, that why I'm just saying this, these are our identities. Okay, when we talk about India as a country, we always say it's a diversity. We are unity diversity, but it's not just a human perspective. You look at from the animal perspective also, they represent different parts, but they all represent an identity of us. Therefore, it provides a different perspective to us that, okay, we need to really kind of take these creatures along, not just see them as somebody who we are now trying to dominate over. So a lot of things that is to learn from pheasants. Pheasants is an important test creature. It is providing a lot of information. Many of these young boys and girls who are listening to this talk can start asking this question to yourself. Why pheasants are so bright? Why they should be so attractive? Why P4 should have long tail? What are the reasons for them? So we should basically start having this question. Pheasants do answer this. Long train, which we call them the tail feather, is known to be an honest signal of the animal's health. In fact, many of you would have seen monal dancing, tragapan dancing, peafowl dancing. Why do they dance? Is that they like dancing then? Dancing because it's like they're into some kind of media, they like to dance. But then you would also see that when these birds dance, you would also see many of the females, they're actually feeding around without actually bothered about so much. So now, when you see bird dancing, you carefully see this, what is happening. When they lift this feather, when they display something, they're showing certain specific pattern. Okay. So now, in this kind of situation, this peafowl, or say monal, or tragapan, when they dances, when they lift the tail feather, they start showing this, all this symmetry, colorful things. So the females now, the female birds generally tend to see this pattern. Based on the pattern, they select them. But then to maintain this pattern, maintain this tail, particularly for peafowl, this is something known as a handicap theory. To have a larger tail is an handicap because predator can catch it easily. Leopard or any other predator can easily catch it. But despite having a long tail, जो pheasant वो survive कर जाता है. जितना उनको handicap होने के बावजूद ये सर्वाइव हो जाता है, इसका मतलब इसका फिटनेस बहुत ज्यादा है. वो ये तो एक बात हो गया. दूसरा, जो टेल्स में जो सिमेट्री, जो ऑस्ट्रेलिया सिमेट्री दिखता है, दैट इज ग्रूम्ड. बिकॉज जब आप देखेंगे, जब भी फेजेंट, जो भी बर्ड्स, नॉट ओनली फेजेंट, मोस्ट बर्ड्स आप देख रहे होंगे, जस्ट गो ऑन द मड एंड देन जस्ट क्लीन देमसेल्फ. दैट इज नोन एज मड बाथ. मड बाथ इसलिए क्योंकि बिकॉज मोस्ट ऑफ अस, लाइक मेनी ऑफ अस हैव दिस lies in our hair. Similarly, the feathers have those have this bacteria, bacillus bacteria बोलते हैं. They are feather degrading bacteria हैं. उसको clean करने के लिए they apply, because they have oil gland, the oil secrete करते हैं, then apply the mud, then they clean them. When they clean along with this mud, then this bacteria also gets cleaned. That is how these pheasants or birds keep themselves very clean and attractive. the keeping this attractive is an effort. So being attractive is also a danger. You all know that. But then being attractive, still surviving means that you are proving your fitness. That is what the pheasant tells. In fact, pheasant is a classic example in many of these universities across the world. Pheasants are an example for evolutionary biology courses. If anybody wants to understand evolutionary biology, you better understand your pheasants because they'll tell you everything. How species evolved, how they behave, why they dance, how they survive. So the trail is supposed to be the honesty. Similarly, when the tragapan dances with this, lappet out, they see this entire nice pattern. That pattern is seen by the female. If there is no symmetry, it is generally rejected. If there is a symmetry, is more accepted. It is like that. I mean, it's all. I mean, you don't have to go here and there. Look at your own self as a human behavior. How do you see? We always look at the symmetry. So that is how. See, these are because for human to make a selection, we have a lot of time. They have horoscope to select. But this wild animals, birds don't have any of them. The females will have very short time to select the right male. So these feathers, these display, they help them. You can see this picture is displaying, but this female don't even care. It does not mean that doesn't care. It's best just looking at it, but then not giving him the importance, but quietly observing the entire pattern and then seeing it, whether this oscilli, whatever you see, whether it is a symmetry. If there is symmetry, which is a signal that it is in a healthy condition, that is how the selection is made. As I said earlier, peasants are, they're just more than just pretty thing. They are not just only beautiful. They're not only talking about history. They're not talking about this health now. There's many of them because they require very specific habitat. They require specific food. That is why they are so special birds. Ground dwelling, so they also require seasonal foods. Like we see this lot of things happening in a captive breeding facilities. We capture birds and then go and feed them nice things, make them too fat. It's not that. Peasants have very clear food habit requirements. They eat a lot of carbohydrates some season. They eat a lot of protein some season. They eat a lot of fat in some season, so that they align themselves to its naturally available forages. So they are also important prey base for carnivores and mammals and birds, particularly many of these mammals, carnivorous mammals and birds. So they've been predated upon by many of these carnivorous mammals and birds, and they themselves is predating on worms and things like that. So they're sitting in a very important niche. And then excellent indicator of habitat quality and biodiversity status. Because imagine if any habitat getting lost, the first animal that will disappear is the pheasants because they're so sensitive. So if you start seeing less and less pheasant, you can imagine that your ground cover is getting affected. See, for many of the officers that are listening, or a young officer, range officer, forest guard, you should always see when you're walking in the forest, when you're moving around, even if you're just getting an encounter rate of all the pheasants, monal or the cheer pheasant, anything, wherever you are, you can easily imagine. You don't have to talk about number of them, but even wherever you're encountering, you can easily know that okay, your habitat is good. Suppose you used to see pheasants before, you're not seeing now. Excuse me. You can imagine there could be something a problem in the habitat because other birds which are living on the higher elevation or in terms of the vertical strata, they can fly. They will still be there because they will be hopping around. But ground dwelling birds, once they lose habitat, they will have to move away. So they become a very important indicator. You can easily understand whether your habitat is getting fragmented or something is happening because Himalaya is very difficult area to manage. You all know that. Walking it, unlike the central India where we have been working, you can go anywhere, you can take a vehicle anywhere. But then Himalayas, only very restricted paths. But then within the restricted path, you need to make information out of it. So you don't know what is happening to Goral, you don't know what is happening to other birds, what is happening to the habitat. But pheasants can be indicated. If you start monitoring them, you know that habitat. Because once the understory is good, then you can imagine that other vertical strata will be automatically good because it is not disturbed. So because they occupy a diverse habitat, large enough for the, basically for them, they require large enough for the feeding and breeding, and they also roost on trees. So you have an excellent combination of nesting. Some tragapan do nest on the trees, not like all of them. So, but then majority of them rest on no, nest on the ground and roost on the trees. So having, and secondly, even when they roost on the trees, you will be very surprised to know they choose an exactly some aspect. You would always go, you even when you're traveling in the forest, you will know southeast aspects, eastern aspects, where you're able to get sunlight early in the morning. Those are the areas which are going to get affected. So now, when we're talking about development project, when you talk about any other concession that needed to give it to the livelihood, other option, you can imagine which are the habitat that should be preserved: roosting habitat, nesting habitat. But when you see them, you know that where they are. So sunlight becomes very important one. So these birds really act from that perspective and then provide you this indication. So these are some of these excellent areas that you probably would have seen, and it's a Great Himalaya National Park has got beautiful, beautiful ones. No, it's a truly a treasure. It's a World Heritage Site. It is not just because people worked on it, but if you just travel around, you know, despite so much development, I think thanks to the government of Himachal Pradesh and to all of you guys, I mean, particularly field director and the DFOs, have been able to still maintain. I know that when you go to Sage Valley, you go to Tirthan Valley or Jiva Valley, you see a completely contrast differences. But the Tirthan is still one of the most pristine habitat on this earth, I would say. And I wish that continues to remain that way, because even for an education point of view, or even for an officers to understand how a forest should be, how a forest should not be, you can always get an example right there. This is again an example that we can look at some old data that we could understand when we were doing a PhD work. So habitat protection started happening in the Himachal Pradesh. I think 1980s, when a lot of the Himachal Pheasant project, Himachal biodiversity project started happening. Ever since the protection was increased, the hunting got down, we could see the growth of the population all across. We could see them all going. So Tragapan, no wonder now you see much more than before. There are a lot of them now. And when I was doing my PhD work, not many people could. In fact, I'm probably the only person I can be very proudly say that to have seen Tragapan large number. I mean, as an outsider, I would say I'm sure this local people would have seen it much more. As an outsider, the large number in the field, because it's very rare to see that time. I'm not sure even today it's not a very regular sighting, even though it is a good population. They are very, very sensitive to change. As I said earlier, because of its habit on the ground and nesting and roosting, if any change habitat, it could be positive, it could be negative. They do adapt to the change. I mean, in the sense that different species will take over. So this kind of changes like agriculture expansion, we lose most of those birds like college, which like to live in the habitat. Yeah, we lose them. But at the same time, you tend to see some of the other galliforms, ground-dwelling birds like partridges. We call them francolins now, black francolin. Earlier, GHNP did not have black francolin. I'm telling you. Today, you have black francolin calling all the way deeper inside. Go up to Rolla, you can hear them. That is a part of the habitat change or climate change, whatever you call it. It's more of a habitat change. We're losing some pheasants to the habitat modification. So they're very, very sensitive to change. It is positive for some birds, negative for some birds. Fire, I don't have to talk about it, because fire can be an issue for generally wildlife, but much more for pheasants. Because as I said, ground dwelling. April, May, June, they start displaying March, April, May, June. That's when they nesting. That is also the period when you tend to have fire. When you have a fire on those during those nesting season, they're going to have clutch loss, egg loss. One thing I want to tell you, please remember, unlike other parts of the country, Himalayas are very special because all the animals, all the people, they only have one chance. The sense that when they breed, if anything happens to breeding, they cannot have second breeding. Whereas, suppose there is a pheasant or there's a bird in Madhya Pradesh, it got affected by fire. They can breed again little bit because they have an extended opportunity. Of course, it may not be the same result as we have them from the first to go, but we do have opportunity. Whereas in the Himalayas, there's only one opportunity. If you lose it, you lose the breeding for the entire year because then monsoon comes, you cannot plant anything because you have to have the chick coming out by the time monsoon arrives, where you get the sprouts and proteins are coming up. So the birds have to be very careful. So we cannot take fire that kind of lightly in the Himalayas as compared to other places. Other places it might affect trees and things like that, but here along with the trees, the whole lot of ground dwelling birds will go. This is something that we see. People modify habitat, canopy getting affected. This is not from Himachal Pradesh, but then there are examples like this. I mean, of course, there are Himachal areas also where we have the loppings and things like that, the lower areas. So that got really get it affects the pheasant. So they are majorly into this kind of sensitivity things. You can see this kind of habitat. They're not uncommon in many places. Increasingly, we see huge issues that is happening. Grazing is an important activity for human, for the livelihood, for the meat, for the wool, everything. But at the same time, they also have a huge impact on pheasants because the grazing time, the breeding time kind of coincides. What we have found in Great Himalaya National Park was that during the grazing time, the dogs, the guarding dogs that are taken along with them, उनके साथ जहां भी जाते हैं वैसे गार्ड नहीं करते हैं, बीच में भी घूम जाते हैं. जहां भी घूम जाते हैं वहां जो नेस्टिंग बर्ड्स का अफेक्ट करते हैं. ऐसे भी हम लोग एविडेंस देखे हैं. जो ये भेड़ बकरियां जाती हैं वो भी बीच बीच में जाकर डिस्ट्रक्ट करते हैं. जब कुछ कुछ ऐसे सिचुएशंस और उसमें हमें बाद में बता दूंगा जो गुच्ची कलेक्शन भी एक था. पहले तो गुच्ची था, अभी गुच्ची नहीं है और ट्रिलिडियम बता रहे हैं वो ज्यादा कलेक्ट कर रहे हैं लोग. तो सिचुएशन के हिसाब से जो लोग जहां भी जाते हैं पर्टिकुलरली जो ब्रीडिंग सीजन में जाते हैं वहां हमारा बहुत प्रॉब्लम होता है. ये गुच्छी हमारा पहले बहुत ज्यादा था. GHNP वाज हॉट बेड फॉर दिस. बैम्बू भी बहुत अच्छा होता था उधर. हम लोग जाके कलेक्ट करते हैं. जब कलेक्ट करते हैं तो नीचे जाके नेस्ट मिल जाता है, सब कुछ मिल जाता है. उनके साथ कुत्ते जाते हैं, कुत्ते भी उसको खा जाते हैं, मतलब अंडे को. सो जो ब्रीडिंग, जैसे मैंने बताया ना, जो कोई भी कारण से कोई भी ब्रीडिंग अफेक्ट हो जाता है, सो जो फेजेंट्स के लिए दूसरी चांस नहीं मिलती है. हो सकता है लोग कुछ नहीं कर रहे हैं जस्ट फॉर डिस्टर्बेंस. बार बार आप नेस्ट में जाएंगे वो डिस्टर्ब होके अबंडन कर लेगा, और जो डोमेस्टिक जाग जाके उसको हम निकालेंगे वो भी उसको नुकसान कर देगा. तो ऐसे सिचुएशंस काफी हम देखते हैं. उसी के कारण से क्या हुआ फाइनली, इसी वजह से हमको, मतलब इफ यू सी फ्रॉम ग्लोबली आल्सो, फ्रॉम नेशनली आल्सो, फ्रॉम हिमाचल के और GHNP आप जितना भी स्केल पे आप देखेंगे, because of some of these reason, both from habitat reason or breeding reason और कभी climate change आजकल बात कर रहे हैं, population बहुत changes हो चुके हैं. Many places they've actually become, what I would say, depleting. लोग कहते हैं 29 species, that is 57% of the entire group pheasants globally are threatened. काफी फेजेंट स्पीसीज हैं और रेड डेटा बुक में हमारा शेड्यूल में फेजेंट देखेंगे, जितना भी आप देखेंगे काफी होंगे अपने वाइल्ड लाइफ प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट में, क्योंकि वो पूरा डिप्लेशन होता जा रहा है. एंड लोग कह रहे हैं अगर हम ऐसे जाएंगे तो काफी फेजेंट्स कैन बिकम एक्सटिंक्ट थैंक्स टू द प्रोटेक्शन. आई थिंक हिमाचल इज वन ऑफ द वेरी लीडिंग स्टेट. मैं तो आप लोग सबको गर्व होना चाहिए कि हिमाचल इतना अच्छा स्टेट है. मैं तो बहुत रेस्पेक्ट करता हूँ सब लोगों को, क्योंकि इतना कठिन जगह है. लोग हैं, लोग बहुत अच्छे हैं हिमाचल में, एज एन ऑफिसर, पीपल, एवरीबडी. क्योंकि डिस्पाइट इतना चैलेंजेस करें, अनफॉर्चुनेटली एक ही चीज है हिमाचल में हम लोग अच्छा नहीं लगता है, जो हाई लेवल ऑफ हाइड्रो पावर प्रोजेक्ट, हाई लेवल ऑफ चेंजेस. क्योंकि पहले हिमाचल वाज अ रोल मॉडल फॉर लाइवलीहुड. जब से पवार साहब का जो हॉर्टिकल्चर बेस्ड हुआ, जो जो इकोनॉमी बढ़ी थी और एजुकेशन लेवल, हिमाचल has been a leader. And similarly for conservation. So in fact अभी लोग कहते हैं, मध्य प्रदेश कहते हैं, महाराष्ट्र कहते हैं, अगर आप हिस्ट्री उठा के देखोगे, जो हिमाचल में, हिमालयास में भी डिस्पाइट अगर वाइल्ड लाइफ इंस्टीट्यूट, बाकी एफआरए, आईसीएफआर जब भी उत्तराखंड में रहने के बावजूद भी, हिमाचल हैज बीन द वन व्हिच वाज अ टॉर्च बेयरर फॉर हिमालय कंजर्वेशन. ऑफ कोर्स जब कंजर्वेशन करेंगे तो इश्यू भी आएगा, लेकिन एक ही इश्यू जो इसमें हम जो ज्यादा बाहर से भी हम लोग को मतलब अनकंफर्ट लगता है, जो एक्सेस हाइड्रो पावर. हाइड्रो पावर तो चाहिए, सबको चाहिए, बट देन तरह स्ट्रेटेजिक होना चाहिए, मे बी सम टाइम फ्यूचर में हैपन. कम्युनिटीज हैव बीन वेरी गुड. आई थिंक सरहान में भी अभी भी हम जो मोनाल का पिक्चर आप देख रहे हैं, एक्चुअली वेस्टर्न ट्रागोपान इज द सिंबल ऑफ सरहान. लोगों ने प्रोजेक्ट किए हैं, सो कुछ कुछ डेवलप कर रहे हैं. वैसे हिमाचल GHNP में भी काफी चीज आप देख रहे हैं. अभी समय आ गया है, मतलब ऐसे नहीं कहूंगा अभी आया है, पहले से आया है, लेकिन अभी ये सिचुएशन ऐसे है, हम लोग कोई भी चीज में आइसोलेशन में नहीं देख सकते हैं. हम सबको जोड़ना चाहिए. We need to see everything in our perspective. So pheasant is not just a pheasant as a species. Pheasant के साथ बहुत कुछ लिंकेजेस हैं, इकोलॉजिकल लिंकेजेस, इकोनॉमिक लिंकेजेस, कल्चरल लिंकेजेस, सो दैट हम लोग को इंटीग्रेटेड प्लान इसलिए क्यों चाहिए, क्योंकि मैंने एक्चुअली जब टाइटल बात किया था, मैं तो फेजेंट के लिए बात करना था. मैं इंटीग्रेटेड का जबरदस्ती उनको बोला मीडिया को, क्योंकि ये समय है, हम लोग उसी में सोचना है. GHNP का मैनेजमेंट प्लान ठीक है, मैनेजमेंट प्लान हमारे पास है, बाउंड्री है, GHNP कोर वटएवर, बट वी हैव टू गो बियॉन्ड. वी नीड टू वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट को हमको प्लान बनाना है. जब वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट का प्लान बनाना, तो देन वी आर गोइंग बियॉन्ड द कन्वेंशनल प्रोटेक्टेड मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम. वी आर टेकिंग एवरीबडी, देयर इज अ कॉमन विजन. हम सबको बोलते हैं ना, जब मोदी जी कहते हैं सबके साथ सबके विकास, ऐसे तो कहने में तो ठीक है, लेकिन हम हर आदमी अपने अपने रोल कैसे उसमें कर सकते हैं, ये हमको सोचना है. ठीक है. सो बेसिकली फेसेंट्स ये अच्छा मीडियम है. आप ये नहीं कह सकते हैं सबके साथ, अगर सबके विकास बोल के, अगर अगर हाथी को कोई ले जाएगा, कोई टाइगर ले चलो, पर कोई सब लोग कुछ तो शेफर्ड बोलेगा तो उसे दुश्मन है ना. लेकिन फेजेंट ऐसे स्पीसीज हैं, ये सबके साथ आ सकता है. उसको एक एम्बेसडर रूप में हम ले जा सकते हैं. इवन स्टेट के लिए ये प्राइड है. नाउ हमारा एक्सक्यूज मी, GHNP being the world side, peasant being the symbol there, हम ये एक नया रूट हम सोच सकते हैं इंटीग्रेटेड स्ट्रैटेजी में. यहाँ बाकी स्टेट में भी कर रहे हैं, जैसे कम्युनिटी प्रोजेक्ट वो मुंशियारी में कुछ लोग काफी पहले से कर रहे थे, क्योंकि जैसे वेस्टर्न ट्रागोपान हमारा पास है, यहाँ सटे ट्रागोपान, लेकिन नथिंग लाइक वेस्टर्न ट्रागोपान, बिकॉज जो हिमाचल में है दैट इज अ मैक्सिमम पॉपुलेशन. बाकी जो भी है बॉर्डर एरिया में है, वहाँ इंसर्जन ज्यादा है, प्रॉब्लम है. सो वी हैव टू ऑलवेज थिंक दैट नो वी हैव समथिंग टू डू. सो देन देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ प्राइड. प्राइड के साथ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ज्यादा है. हमारे पास ज्यादा ट्रागोपान का मतलब हमको ज्यादा रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी भी है. सो आई थिंक द वीडियोस में दिखाना जाता था कैसे वो डिस्प्ले करते हैं, लेकिन वो पूरा कॉपी नहीं वर्क, बिकॉज दूसरे प्रेजेंटेशन दूसरे कंप्यूटर से. ये जो सब वेस्टर्न जो ट्रागोपान का जो डिस्प्ले है, आप जनरली देखेंगे तो बहुत अच्छा लगेगा. आप सरगान में जाइएगा, कभी भी कोई मौका मिलेगा, कुछ कुछ लोग शायद मौका मिलेगा वहाँ पोस्टिंग होने पे, और फील्ड में भी अगर ज्यादा समय स्पेंड करेंगे. इनफैक्ट हम बात करते थे हम लोग को तो अच्छा लगता है. मेनी ऑफ ऑफिसर्स आई नो, यंग फेलोज, यू हैव कमिंग विद डिफरेंट बैकग्राउंड, कोई MSc है, कोई PhD है, कोई नो M.Tech है, B.Tech है, डजंट मैटर. कंजर्वेशन इज एवरीवन एजेंडा, जिसमें आपको अगर सच में आप दिल में लगता है मुझे भी कुछ कंट्रीब्यूट करना है सोसाइटी के लिए, मुझे भी कुछ करना है, वाइल्ड लाइफ के अलावा और कोई नहीं. नहीं तो नेता बनना चाहिए, नहीं तो कुछ और बनना चाहिए, बिजनेसमैन. बट एज अ पर्सन आई वुड से बीइंग इन फॉरेस्ट सर्विस इज अ प्राइड. आप रियलाइज नहीं करेंगे, जब बड़े होते पता चलेगा. बाकी सर्विस में भी जाके देख लेंगे कितना प्रेशर होगा, बिकॉज दिस इज अ नोबल सर्विस, हम हमेशा कहते हैं. लेकिन उसमें बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, आजकल हम फिटनेस, लोग इतना तमाम खर्चा करते हैं इधर जाने के लिए, उधर योगा करते हैं, वो जिम जाता है, कुछ नहीं. यू गेट पोस्टेड योरसेल्फ हिमाचल प्रदेश एंड वॉक, एवरीबॉडी विल बी फिट. जब मैं हिमाचल में था, आई वाज ओनली 53 kg. बोल सकता हूँ, लाइटली क्यों बोल रहा हूँ, बिकॉज that keeps you fit. So that is because of that fitness I'm still able to do work. So being working in Himachal, no, ये आज ही कोई सीनियर फॉरेस्ट ऑफिसर ने बताया, जो सबसे अच्छा है हमारे लिए 11 नंबर का बस. 11 नंबर का बस मतलब our legs. The more the leg work that we do, the better we have understanding, the sooner you can make meaningful contribution to the conservation. So जो फेजेंट्स के लिए बारे में बात कर रहा था, ये आप ये कुछ क्विकली मैं रन करूंगा। काफी फेजेंट स्पीसीज है, ग्लोबली रहता है। विलेज फेजेंट से लेकर चीर फेजेंट से लेकर जितना भी तमाम 5 तरीके के ट्रैगोपन स्पीसीज है। बट हिमाचल में ट्रैगोपन देखेंगे, जैसे स्टडी एरिया मैंने उस टाइम स्टडी किया था, ये हम लोग पहले प्रेडिक्ट किए थे इसे मैप में देखकर। आप देखेंगे साइंस वैली, तीर्थन वैली, जो बीच छोटा है उस एरिया में काफी हम लोग काम किया था, मॉडलिंग किए थे। मॉडलिंग ऐसे मॉडलिंग नहीं, वो स्टैटिस्टिकल मॉडलिंग है। ये हम लोग प्रिडिक्टेड ट्रैगोपन का डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन था। अभी आप लोगों का चैलेंज है, जो भी लोग जीएचएनपी में काम कर रहे हैं, इसी मैप को देख सकते हैं, है क्या इतना एरिया में ट्रैगोपन। ये थोड़ा होमवर्क होगा, एक्सरसाइज होगा, आप देख सकते हैं। ये मैं शेयर करूंगा, मेरा पीपीटी पूरा शेयर करूंगा, आप यूज कर लीजिएगा। सो और कहीं से भी गांव वाले के साथ भी और बच्चे लोग स्कूल में भी हमको ट्रैगोपन को और बेसेंट को वी नीड टू क्रिएट एज एन एम्बेसडर। आई एम श्योर देर आर बीन हैप्पी। ऐसे नहीं कह रहा हूँ कुछ नहीं हो रहा है, सब कुछ कर रहे हैं लोग, मुझे पता है। डिपार्टमेंट से भी काफी ट्रेनिंग हो रही है, लोग कर रहे हैं, वहाँ भी जो कमिटीज हैं इको टूरिज्म कर रहे हैं लोग, काफी कर रहे हैं। बट हम लोग थोड़ा ऑर्गेनाइज्ड वे में, जैसे डिस्ट्रिक्ट डेवलपमेंट प्लान है, जो ग्राम पंचायत डेवलपमेंट प्लान है, इसमें हम लोग ले जाना। इट शुड गो बियॉन्ड जस्ट अवेयरनेस, इट शुड गो इनटू दिस पीपल, इनटू दिस डेवलपमेंट प्रोसेस। मोनाल सिमिलरली मोनाल्स है, कलीज हैं, काफी पेशेंट्स आप देख सकते हैं। सो पहले जो पुराना में देखेंगे, डिफेंस पीपल हैव कंट्रीब्यूटेड लॉट टू कंजर्वेशन। नाउ इट्स अप टू अस हाउ मच वी कैन कंट्रीब्यूट। Lot of books, anecdotes have been written, but nothing like what you're actually able to bring out, because the more opportunities now, काफी चीज at stake में है। So every species evolve, जैसे मैंने बताया था, evolutionary, ecologically, economically, culturally, medically, so much is there with this pheasants. It is a matter of scientific challenge and social responsibility to help these pheasants. So जो larger perspective में जो मैं कह रहा था, because all these things is building up, क्योंकि ये linkages जब तक नहीं पता चलेगा, हमको integrated concept में नहीं जाएंगे। So integrated approach हमको है, ये जो ये 10 प्रिंसिपल लोगों ने कहा है, these are 10 principles of integrated approach है। उसमें अडाप्टिव मैनेजमेंट, कॉमन कंसर्न, मल्टी स्केल, जो काफी चीज है, तमाम चीज है, वो बाद में मैं डिटेल बता दूंगा। उसमें अल्टीमेटली हमको क्या चाहिए, पहले प्लानिंग प्रोसेस बनाना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि जैसे जीएचएनपी में है, वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट है। व्हाट इज अवर जनरल टेक होम, व्हाट इज सिग्निफिकेंस, व्हाट इज द थीमेटिक कॉन्टेक्स्ट, हम बाउंड्री कैसे करना चाहिए, हमारा स्टेक होल्डर कौन सा स्टेक होल्डर है, उनसे कंसल्ट करना है। तो हमारा टेक्निकल मैन पावर थोड़ा हायर करें, आप खुद टेक्निकल बन जाएं, थोड़ा रिव्यू करें, थोड़ा एक्सप्लोर करें। So there are steps to be followed. Get some information from the field and do a consultation. So all those things can be now characterized and brought in integrated planning. हम लोग अभी ये चीज को कोशिश कर रहे हैं बाकी स्टेट में। हम चाहते हैं, in fact I am already in the process of developing something for कुल्लू डिस्ट्रिक्ट। होपफुली जापान एडेड प्रोजेक्ट में हम लोग कोशिश कर रहे हैं सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट के साथ। We might be coming there with the good news of developing an integrated plan for the entire Kullu district through the central support, जिसके वजह से हम पूरा हम सब चीज को, जो आपका लोकल इंस्टीट्यूशन, जो फेजेंट, बाकी जो की स्पीसीज को लेते हुए एक मॉडल फॉर द एंटायर स्टेट हम डेवलप कर पाएंगे। इसमें क्या होगा, जो भी कम्युनिटी के इश्यूज होंगे, सब कुछ लिंक कर सकते हैं, उसके बेसिस पे वी कैन एड्रेस देम। देयर मेनी ऑफ दिस कम्युनिटी एंगेजमेंट स्ट्रेटजीज, क्या क्या हो सकता है, सब उसमें कर सकते हैं। ये चीज छोटा सा जो हम लोग मध्य प्रदेश में क्या है, व्हेन यू हैव अ लैंडस्केप लेवल स्ट्रेटजीज, वी कैन पुट एवरीथिंग टुगेदर ऑन वन मैप। प्रेजेंट होगा, स्ट्रैगोपन, स्नो लेपर्ड होगा, बाकी होगा, कम्युनिटी एक्टिविटीज होंगे, वाटर रिलेटेड होंगे, सब कुछ होंगे। सो वंस यू पुट देम ऑल टुगेदर, देन इट इज इजी फॉर अस कंजर्वेशन एंड इट इज फॉर द डेवलपमेंट। हम डेवलपमेंट कभी भी रुक जाते हैं, क्योंकि हम लोग को पहले से पता नहीं, हम चाहते सब चाहिए, सब तो चाहिए, वो तो ईजी है। लेकिन जब सबको भी चाहिए ना, हमको तो सब चाहिए एज अ कंजर्वेशनिस्ट, बट बाकी लोगों को चाहिए, डेवलपमेंट चाहिए, लाइवलीहुड चाहिए। सो ये दोनों कंजर्वेशन डेवलपमेंट को बैलेंस करने के लिए we need to put everything together and then try to see where there is a negotiation ground जिसमें हम काम कर सकते हैं। So इसके लिए थोड़ा एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर भी हम सोचें, this is an example coming from मध्य प्रदेश, लेकिन there are strategies to have an authority or council and have an integrated learning center। ये जो हम कोशिश कर रहे हैं, ऑलरेडी मुझे सुना है, I got to know that GHNP setting up integrated learning research center, हम चाहते हैं उसमें हम लोग भी we will be bringing some more resources to support that from central funding, so we can create this Kullu GHNP Heritage Council। Heritage Council तो चाहिए हमको integrated landscape बनाने के लिए, फिर district level और पंचायत level committees के through we can convert this। So कभी कभी जो plan करते हैं, we have to have this now soon later principle, what we call them NSL principle, अगर आप जब 10 साल का प्लान बना रहे हैं, so you need to really know कब अभी क्या करना है, बाद में क्या करना है, लॉन्ग टर्म में क्या करना है. So this is how I see the connection between pheasants and to a larger landscape rather than just treating them as one of the species. So उसमें क्या होगा then बाद में, this is again an example that I'm picking from the central India, हम quantitative outcome भी दिखा सकते हैं. क्या है कुछ साल 10 साल के बाद क्या चाहिए हमको, कितना नो प्रोडक्ट एरिया चाहिए, कितना पॉपुलेशन चाहिए, अलग अलग टारगेट हम फिक्स कर सकते हैं. दैट वे इट अलाउस अस rather than just identifying and managing. We need to go beyond just putting to the, we need to have some kind of business model or visionary model to just look at that. So of course GHNP has all the space, technical manpower and then vision. So therefore, I think I don't see a problem why it can happen. We all have to get together and start working. So ultimately, जो हम लोग हमेशा कहते हैं पर्यावरण और विकास भी, पर्यावरण भी, मैं तो ये कहता हूँ हम लोग हमेशा विकास पर्यावरण से होती है, पर्यावरण से विकास, विकास भी चाहिए पर्यावरण पे चाहिए. क्योंकि कभी क्या होता है, लोग कहते हैं विकास भी पर्यावरण, सो विकास के करते हुए पर्यावरण भूल जाते हैं. ताकि विकास पर्यावरण से निकलता हमको सबको मालूम होना चाहिए. अगर हम जो सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट ग्लोबली बात करते हैं, नेशनली बात करते हैं, लोकली बात करते हैं, अगर वो चाहिए तो वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस. जो भी विकास इतना भी हो रहा है पर्यावरण से ही हो रहा है. सो विकास चाहिए मतलब पर्यावरण भी चाहिए, नहीं तो पर्यावरण के बिना विकास नहीं हो सकता है. सो दिस अंडरस्टैंडिंग कैन बी अ गुड एजुकेशन मटेरियल दैट वी कैन टेक इट अप. तो विद दिस आई थिंक मैं बहुत ये जो पर्टिकुलर जो इडियम जो सेंटेंस दैट मेनी ऑफ यू कोट करते होंगे, सुना होगा पहले भी, मैं दोबारा रिपीट करता हूँ, मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है. क्योंकि कॉन्जर्वेशन जैसे मेनी ऑफ योर यंग ऑफिसर, यंग बॉयज एंड गर्ल्स, हम हमको खुद पता नहीं होगा हमारा आपके पास क्या है. जैसे अल्केमिस्ट का बुक पढ़ा होगा, किसने भी पढ़ रहे होते, वो पूरा ट्रेजर ढूंढता पूरा दुनिया में. अल्टीमेटली वो ट्रेजर अपने पास है. जो हिमाचल वाले की हालत वही है. यू गाइस हैव द ट्रेजर एंड एवरीथिंग इज विथ यू. सो लेकिन हमको पता नहीं है, उसके लिए एक्सप्लोर करना पड़ेगा. सो दैट इज व्हाट दिस पर्टिकुलर the statement है, we will conserve only what we understand. We will understand only what we are taught. यहाँ का taught का मतलब है वाइल्ड लाइफ फील्ड में आपका 11 नंबर बस. जितना पैदल एक्सप्लोर करोगे, जितना पढ़ोगे, you will get empowered and you will understand more. When you understand, then you will feel the need to conservation. Conservation का मतलब मैं नहीं कह रहा हूँ only you be an animal activist, but then it is a balanced way of making conservation livelihood work. And peasants are an important medium to reach everywhere because it has got ecological, evolutionary, economic, cultural, and medical linkages. And thank you so much for this opportunity to be part of this celebration. And once again, I wish the GHNP and the great and the Himachal administration my compliments for making World Heritage now GHNP as a World Heritage site. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramesh. Now the floor is open for discussion. If any of the attendees would like to have any query, they can ask. We will be taking only maybe 2 or 3 questions at the maximum.
And you can always reach out to me later if you need anything more.
So I think not many questions are there.
Yeah, I can see that. BP में दुनिया भर है.
I think most of them are very satisfied with whatever you have said. Uh,
I hope so. तो GHNP में बैठे जो बीच वाले कौन है? GHNP से अटेंड कर रहे हैं? RFO7, is it the GHNP team?
no, I think they are joined individually.
No, there's a team people. I can see the lot of people sitting in this connected from RFO7. I think it's probably
It's a forest academy from Sundanagar.
okay, Sundar Nagar. And
It's
then
about
there's also okay,
trainees.
different classroom. Okay, great.
Yes. So I think by whatever I have gathered from this talk, I would say ki whatever I've understood also, and from various conversation with the previous officers also, what they said is ki whatever ecosystem services we are deriving from a source like Great Himalayan National Park, if we save uh, Western Tragopan, and if we say that encounter rate it keep increasing or it is visible, that means the habitat is safe and it is giving us the eco services, let it for tourism or for water cycles or all the life cycles which are there. So to my understanding is if we are able to see ki these rare animals, if they keep moving around, that means the habitat is very very safe.
Yeah, basically, I think beyond Tragapan, if we take all the pheasants, because all the pheasants starting from subtropical, temperate, alpine तक ये पूरा cover कर देता है. अगर हम
Right.
pheasant का ध्यान दे देंगे तो it is easier to understand rest. Yeah, you're right, absolutely.
And if I would like to say ki suppose those francolin, francolin, if they are now being found at in places in GHNP, do we understand that the habitat is not actually improving, but it is different from what it would have been?
It is improving. It is improving. It's agriculture fields. It is actually more agriculture field has come. Okay, that belts have come. So earlier that was the bushes got cleared. So I would say both ways. It is benefiting some birds. So
Okay.
Franklin, and when I was doing my PhD, Franklin was not part of GHNP.
Okay.
So now Franklins are there deeper inside.
Though I would like to simply tell also that we do keep conducting these surveys, census, and to my understanding now, even if we are doing the monal census in for example, in the winter season, in January, February, a lot of encounters of Western tragopans are seen. And uh, if we go back, the type of documentaries that we have made earlier, that almost a big documentary was made, and only in the last we were able to catch a glimpse of it in a camera trap. But nowadays, like whenever people go inside doing any of the sensors, they will come out with reporting ki, okay, we have seen the tragopan. So that means ki tragopan number has definitely been increased increasing, or our maybe our capabilities also have increased to record them.
No, no, I think it's definitely increased. I can tell you that because otherwise it's very shy bird to detect. And they're very, no, I think population definitely increased. I've seen there's one famous photographer spent about 2 weeks in
True, true.
GHNP and then came back and said, not that is the recent one. Earlier when I was doing,
Uh-huh.
they came and said these guys are lying. There is no Tragapan in GHNP, they said. So that is also a statement. Now people go and photograph, they see unthinkable, yeah.
True, 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 true. Rather, this same year, one of our forest worker, the Western Tragopan, has moved inside his house from far off. So
Allowed.
it was rescued and released back into the Tragopan,
Lucky guy.
raised back into the GHNP. Sorry.
Lucky
So
guy.
different instances are happening. I think we also need to bring more into the record. I think then we will be able to tell ki what is happening to the population of the pheasants.
Yeah.
So I think there are no more questions and no more discussion or point is seen from many of the listeners. So now I would like to uh, thank Dr. K. Ramesh for his uh, elaborate talk on the pheasant and the integrated landscape management, focusing on the pheasant, taking us from the beginning of the pheasant, from where the name came, and eventually to its distribution of the pheasant, and focusing on the Western Tragopan especially. So I'm really very very grateful to Dr. K. Ramesh for sparing his time and sharing his knowledge and his views with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.